It's like, have you seen the Truman Show? You know how he sits and then when he realizes that his whole world is like set up, that the same people walk by every day when he sits out the front, like lady with flowers.
Yes.
That was you.
That was me, but I was real.
Lady with double pram.
Yeah.
That is you. Welcome to the After Dinner Mint, a podcast of stories I tell you at dinner. We bring Christian women in Western Australia together through honest stories. If you like what you hear, please sign up to get honest stories in your inbox on Wednesdays. The link's in the show note. I'm Beck and I'm here with Britt and Rach. Hi guys.
Hi.
Hi. So today's topic is escaping small talk. To kick things off, Britt, how long have you lived in your neighbourhood for? Do you know your neighbours?
Yes, I do know my neighbours. I have lived here for 6 years now. So I guess that's a pretty decent amount of time. And we found when we moved into this neighbourhood that fairly quickly people actually made an effort to introduce themselves, and we are particularly close to one of our neighbours who my kids almost like see her as another kind of grandmother. And then on the other side, we know those neighbours, but they do keep a bit more to themselves. But we are on a busy road, so I do know people across from us and some a bit further down. There's limitations to who you can meet.
Yeah, that is really tricky. And Rach, what about you?
Yeah, getting hit by a car, it really puts a dampener on a friendship.
I know, just got to lift your game. Be like, come on, kids, try harder.
Run. We have lived in our house for almost 4 years. We only have one neighbour because we live on a cul-de-sac, but we're like on a corner. And they're a really nice old couple and they're lovely. So, yes, we do know our neighbours. But my husband's a bit better at making friends with people than I am. So he has a beer with the old man next door and things. So,
aww, that's really sweet.
Yeah.
We moved here like 7.5 years ago. We've gotten to know our neighbours like on both sides, and we know like some families, but that's because our kids go to the local school. Like our church is in our neighbourhood, but like we wouldn't actually know that many people. Not that many people live in our suburb that actually go to that church. Like they're probably a little bit further away. Okay, so that's a good like getting the lay of the land. But how would you say, like, how have you established or like, gotten to know people in your actual neighbourhood? Because it's tricky. So maybe Rach, you can tell us first.
Well, our neighbours are they are an older couple. They've got adult kids and grandkids and stuff, but they actually host every year street Christmas. So all the people on the street go to their house and we have like in November because everyone's got Christmas stuff, but everyone brings a plate and we have street Christmas. It's so lovely, which I would never do. Me make friends. And I think we also have like our kids, they've like given our kids little lollies for Christmas or something. So our kids have left something in their letterbox and stuff. So kids are good for that. But yeah, my husband's very good at the chat over the fence type thing. Yeah, and also our neighbours, we have chickens and they keep their kitchen scraps and give us, like, they have a bucket that they leave on their side of the fence and we give our chickens their scraps and then we leave and then we leave it back. Yeah, it's very sweet.
Oh, cute.
That's mostly them. Really I'm not going to give myself credit for that because that's them. But I've engaged with their friendship.
You've responded to their friendship overtures, like.
Exactly.
Britt, how have you developed relationships in the area that you live?
Yeah, our church is in our suburb and a lot of people live in the suburb. So you see people from the church community around all the time. When we bought the house when I was pregnant and then moved in when our eldest was about 6 months. And so I joined a mother's huge as well for just knowing people locally. School is in our community as well, and a lot of people live locally. And so again, I just see people around all the time. I think also when the twins were babies, I was very visible in my community because I was constantly walking everywhere with a double pram and a toddler. It was easier to walk than it was to drive a car. So I literally would have the EA at the school say to me, I saw you walking your pram. Or like people would say to me, my husband saw you walking on the street.
Oh,
I hope I was behaving okay.
like a ghost that haunts the streets.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would there was a period of time where they would wake up early and I would put them in the pram and I would walk them around our suburb and then come home. And so I guess people in cars would drive past me and see me. And meanwhile, I was like, I'm just getting out of the house because why not? Like, what are we going to do here? You're awake. I'm awake. Let's just go.
It's like, have you
That's
seen
great.
the Truman Show? You know how he sits and then when he realizes that his whole world is like set up, that the same people walk by every day when he sits out the front, like Lady with Flowers. Man,
Ah, yes.
that was you.
That was me, but I was real.
Lady with double pram.
Yeah.
That is you.
Yeah, double pram lady. I don't have it anymore, and it was a great relief to get rid of it. But yeah, I think I was very visible, and you see the same people. Like I know the guys at the park that drink during the day because I would walk up to them and I would say hi.
Yeah.
I think I just probably was also just quite happy to engage with whoever and chat. So I feel like I'm familiar with a lot of people in my suburb. I might not know their name. I might not know anything about them, but I would say hi to them and I would recognize them and they would recognize me.
I feel like I'm a little bit similar. Not that I have the double pram, but I have spent a lot of time walking with the pram in my suburb, like because my kids go to the local school. It's like a kilometre from our house. So I've just spent a lot of time like walking to and from school and then seeing a lot of the same people. And then people would say things to me like, I've seen you walking. Are you okay? Do you need a lift?
Yes, yeah.
Why are you walking? I think everyone thinks that something is wrong, but I was like, it's just, it's a nice exercise. They're like, are you sure? Are things okay?
Yeah, I like walking. It's nice.
I know, it's quite nice. I think now that it's about 7 years in, I think it's the combination of we go to church in our area. Like I run the playgroup there. So I've even said to mums at the school, like, do you want to come to like the playgroup that we run? But another way, interestingly, is actually not a thing that I planned, was more that I have a very naughty dog. So she's killed like 11 of my chickens, but also one of her previous hobbies was digging up our veggie gardens. So we put our veggie gardens out the front. So that did mean that we kind of spent more time out the front, like watering or planting, and that's how we got to know like our neighbours on either side of us. So now like we've got to know like our Thai neighbour. She's like, I don't know, my grandma's age, and she brings like Thai food, which is really sweet.
Yum.
I know. She's really lovely. And then I've had some guys like across the road help me break into my house when I got locked out. They were like, this never happened, right? And I was like, I don't even know who you are, but it was concerning how easily they broke into my house.
Why are you so good at this, sir?
Why are you so great at this? And available at 6 a.m. to a woman in a hoodie with no shoes and a baby on her hip. But
yeah,
that's fine. You know where our spare key is.
You
know. That's funny.
But yeah, so that's kind of we've gotten to know some people, but I don't think we would be. There's less people living in our suburb from our church than I think yours is, Britt, because I think yours was really intentionally planted there.
Yeah, it was planted in an area lots of people lived already. And then other people, I guess people tried to missionally move in to the suburb or nearby.
I really love that.
Well, it does make it easier for being part of a community. If you're, say, a 5 or 10 minute drive from where your other people are in your church, you can be in each other's lives a lot more, whereas prior to that, we were driving kind of 20 minutes. And once we had kids, that did get exhausting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, if we moved a significant distance, I probably would try and find something local to us because it's been a pretty big game changer to be able to be local. Like in reality, we could go without a car for a while.
Yeah. So how far away is your church from where you live, Rach, now? Is it closer?
Yes, much closer. It's like maybe less than 5 minutes. If I do the speed limit, it's 5 minutes.
I don't know. I mean, I suppose you're not out walking with a double pram, but do you see people around from church where you live?
No, because we sort of live like in a semi-rural area. So the block sizes is, I think the minimum is an acre. Everyone's got lots of space. which is lovely. But we live on like one end of the suburb, and our church is on the other end. But the church is also in the bush, so people don't really walk around.
Like maybe Rach, you could speak to this a bit first, but like how would you say that you've like developed or prioritized like deep relationships with friends or people from church, or like, I don't know. How do you go deeper than like passing veggie scraps or like once a year kind of street party?
I think I'm on one hand good at it and on the other hand terrible at it, because I am often very happy to share my own struggles and shortcomings in sort of a way to like facilitate. Like, I'm happy to share stuff about myself that's either like embarrassing or shame, whatever. And then it's not necessarily always reciprocated. But I think as I've gotten older, I've also realized that like often people respond better to me asking stuff about them than me sharing stuff about me, because I feel like that's me being vulnerable and trying to open things up by being like, hey, I'll share something that like I'm ashamed of or whatever, to try and like open people up. But it hasn't always, well, it mostly hasn't worked, to be honest, particularly in like Bible study content, context and things, when people go, oh, you know, anyone want a prayer request or anything, and you go get really on that, and then it's not reciprocated, which is sort of feeling like, oh no, now I've overshared and no one wants to overshare as well. And to be honest, that's something I'm very much like, I have to actively stop. Recently realized or learned that this is probably an ADHD trait thing as well, is that often when I'm listening to someone talk, I will immediately, in my head, it links to something that reminds me of me. And I'm like, oh, I'm relating to you. Let me share that relates to the thing that you're talking about. But it actually often comes across as, oh, you're just making this about you. So I am trying to be a better listener and a better asker of interesting and like open-ended questions, which is harder than which is pretty hard to do, actually. So my answer to that is I'm not very good at it. And I think I'm often more concerned with making sure the person feels good in a conversation than having not necessarily not a deep conversation, but I think often I am more concerned about affirming people's struggles and things rather than going, oh, what about that? Why are you doing that? Whereas my sort of go-to is, oh, I don't want you to feel bad about that. Let me relate to you and help you feel better with my own struggles, rather than doing the awkward thing of, sometimes people need to be called out on stuff. Sometimes you need to go, that wasn't right. That wasn't whatever. And so I think often I'm led by my desire to be liked and to make other people feel good in a conversation rather than have a deep conversation.
It's almost like, in trying to appease them and make them comfortable, you're not actually being vulnerable yourself, because you're not staying true to what you kind of think.
Yes.
You're connecting with them through almost like validating them, which is useful and a good tool in friendships. But to have true connection, it has to be true to what you think as well.
Yes. And I think often, particularly I found this in women's conversations, I often find that there's a certain amount, not always terrible, but there's a certain amount of husband bashing and whinging about married life and kids and that sort of thing. And I really like my husband, and I often have found myself overinflating a thing that he's done to relate to someone who's whinging about their husband, to go, oh yeah, it's hard or whatever. And then I'll leave that feeling like, oh, I didn't really like that thing the story I told happened, but I didn't really feel the way I presented it like I felt about it to make them feel good.
Like some validation is good, but it sounds like if you're always trying to validate, it actually, ironically, like kind of impedes that connection.
Yes, very much so. I don't know how other people leave those conversations. Maybe they leave feeling validated, and that's good. But I often leave going like, oh, I kind of misrepresented myself in that. In order to make them feel good, I've compromised.
Yeah, and that's tricky because they're like authentic relationships do require a bit of honesty, but then that line is quite hard.
Yes. I had a conversation with a friend recently about something, and I sort of was telling her about it and definitely presenting it in a certain way. And she kind of like called me out on it a little bit. And then in the moment I was like, ew, I don't like that feeling. And then afterwards I was like, man, what a good friend. Like, because I feel like every conversation I'd had recently, and I'd talked about the same issue, and people had just sort of validated me and been like, oh, yeah, okay, and like accepted the way I was presenting the scenario. And she was kind of like, I don't know if you're actually assessing this. I think you're lying to yourself, basically. And yeah, in the moment, I was like, oh, that actually was offensive to me in the moment. But then afterwards, I was like, man, and never do you feel more cared for than when someone cares enough to call you out on something, because it feels bad in the moment. But afterwards, I was like, man.
Yeah. She liked you enough to tolerate your discomfort with what she was saying because she kind of loved you enough to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting what you were saying before about in Bible study when they ask for prayer points, that you almost get that like vulnerability hangover where you're like, I've just bared my soul and no one's saying anything. And I've noticed in kind of female only kind of Bible study groups versus mixed gender groups. In the mixed gender, it can be very surface. And then in the single gender, it's like people are a lot more open about their experiences and things that they're struggling in. And it's something I've really appreciated when people are really actually vulnerable and share about where they're at. There's something so powerful in connecting about that. Whereas I'm almost the opposite to you. Like, I don't want to be vulnerable. And my job means I'm often not the vulnerable one, right? Like, I'm very happy for other people to be. But then I'm like, no, I'm okay. Which also is inauthentic to my experience because, of course, I feel hard and there's lots of things in which I feel really vulnerable and unsure. And so when I've been able to actually become more vulnerable, I have found it really connecting to others, and it has kind of built a sense of community because it's like people actually know what's happening for you and can care for you well when you're open with where you're at.
Yeah, and I think this friend as well, after this interaction, she said, like, I'm gonna ask you about this. So it was particularly in that Bible study context as well. It's somewhat easy to share, I know, like, oh, a prayer point, a single like prayer thing or whatever, whereas there's something different about, I'm gonna ask you about this vulnerable thing, and I'm gonna see if you're actually doing something or if we're just downloading stuff that we struggle with without any sort of thing, with any purpose to move forward and actually deal with the thing that we are presenting without actually having any sort of desire to change.
Yeah, that's so powerful because it also, I don't know, there's something about like someone saying to you, I'm going to ask you about this, that really makes you feel seen. Oh, you're actually going to remember that and you care enough to check in with me. And I think also like that whole concept of someone caring enough to call you out, that they love you enough and still want to be in your life, but they're also not going to let you kind of just go down your own garden path, which most of us are pretty likely to go down if we're left to our own devices.
Yes.
Yeah. And see, I kind of initially started where you were, Britt, where I was like, didn't share anything. And probably, again, we have similar, work histories. So I wouldn't share anything, but then it kind of, I was like, oh, I feel very lonely, and I feel like no one actually really sees because I'm just the one who's carrying all the stuff. But then wading into being like, I'm going to share, I'm going to be honest, and it was just horrible. I was like, I noticed that when I did it, I was like, okay, like this does create connection. But every time I would do it, I was like, I hate this. I hate this. I hate people asking me how I'm doing. How do you feel about that? They'd follow up with me. They would say things. I was like, the core of me fundamentally hated it. I've come to appreciate the honesty, and I have learned that people like, that's the thing that they like. And, they're like, you're so direct. But I'm like, I didn't start there. I'm like, I've had to learn it. And sometimes I'm like, have I gone too far to the other way? Because I don't know.
It actually reminds me of someone recently shared a reel with me, and it's from White Lotus in season 2, which, people have differing opinions on whether they want to watch that. But this clip where she's saying to the therapist, what if the core of the onion is just really crazy, but I want to let it out? and I want to onion this onion, and I'm just going to start telling people, and I'm going to tell my husband what's at the core and let him see me. And the therapist is like, it's probably fine at the core. And she's no, the
No.
core is crazy.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it is that feeling of like, I shared this, but now it is out there. And I have to kind of deal with the consequences of the fact that everyone has now seen this part of me that perhaps I actually would want to keep to myself, or perhaps I actually get the help I needed. But, it is quite confronting, I think, to let others truly see you. And maybe sometimes the core is a little bit out there.
Mm.
Yeah, but then the weirdest thing I have found, even like writing online, I would like publish something and then overnight I'd be like, oh no, like what if this is the crazy thing? What if like someone else sees that there is something really crazy there? They see that onion and then they know that I'm actually insane. But I have been encouraged, like mostly the stuff that I think is just like the craziest thing. And people are like, oh, like you put words to that. Like I feel that too. And you're like, oh, weirdly enough, by being so specific, I have actually just landed on universal.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not actually that special. We're all pretty much
Yeah.
on the same experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought I was special. I thought I was unique in this struggle, but I'm not.
Which is the power of sharing, right? And connecting. That it
Yes.
kind of normalizes the human experience. And I mean, the Bible's like that too. Like you read their stories and you can think to yourself, I would never do that. And then another moment in your life, you're like, I'm exactly like this. This is like the Psalms. You read them and you're like, oh, I would be the same. I'm no better than you. In fact, I'm worse.
And I think sometimes I have not displayed wisdom in who I've decided to overshare with. We're Christians. We're meant to be like having deep conversations and sharing our journey and stuff with people. And then I've gone, I probably don't like, I need to also like be intentional with who I share things with, and someone who can actually like, who can either relate or we can work together on something, or I can help them, rather than just like, I'm going to be vulnerable with everyone, because then it makes other people feel better. Like and I think that's been a issue of mine, to just overshare without considering, is this wise?
Yeah. Some friends and I have actually been doing this Lent devotional, and last week's topic was connection. And so in the chat, people are sharing about their experiences of connecting with others and what it's like. And, a lot of this stuff has kind of come up. But it is interesting to think about, people have different ways of seeking that out. Like some people are super intentional, which I have not thought, that's not really how my brain works. So I feel like friendships, thankfully, have kind of pretty naturally developed in my life. And then as it progresses, you share more and more. And probably because I'm more likely to be less vulnerable, I maybe get the timing not better, because I think you can go too late as well, but I'm not likely to just like share straight out. But it is interesting thinking about, like, do either of you have a model for how you decide who to connect with and when to connect, or how do you do this?
I wouldn't say that I have a model, but I have probably been a bit more mindful in terms of, okay, there are a few people that like I will really deeply invest in, be like, okay, I trust you to speak into my life. I'm intentionally, whatever bits of space and time I have, I will give to those people. Okay, like it's not a project. It's not like me just helping you. It's equals. I want to hear your stuff. I trust you to speak into my life. I want to hear the same for you. Like I will listen and give feedback and all of that kind of thing, and like pitch in to be like, I will take your kids for you. You can take mine. You know what I mean? Like that back and forth. It's reciprocal. But I also think it's been a real relief to be like, not all of my friendships have to be like that either. So I think it's been a really nice thing to just be like, I'm just going to be present where I am. And like, it's fun to just have like friends at kids sport. It's fun to chat to the mum at school. It's fun to be like, hey, I go to this park, I'm normally here on a Monday, and our kids go to school together. And one of the mums was like, do you want to meet up on a Monday? I was like, yeah, we'll just be here. And I don't have to expect all of those people to meet my needs, but I can just enjoy those people who are there. So I feel like that's been a nice distinction for me, but I'm not sure if that's the model that you were kind of getting at.
I'm not necessarily thinking a model. I mean, so some people do think about like how many people can I have at the top level of like really close friends? How many people can I have at a broader level? So
I'm
there
not that
are
structured.
some models you can use to work that out. But yeah, I reckon where I've potentially maybe struggled in the past is to have loads of those kind of friendly relationships where I'm not necessarily sharing anything, they're not necessarily sharing anything, but I'm quite happy to hang out with whoever. Happy to go to the park, I'm happy to have a coffee, I'm happy to chat with, and I guess in having kids, you end up with a lot of those relationships, which is like, yeah, the mum at the school or the person at the coffee shop. I will kind of just strike up conversations with people. But
Yeah, me too.
I think what I can sometimes miss out on, and I do have close relationships as well, but in being more I could be more intentional in investing in like being more deeper with those fewer people rather than spreading myself over a lot of people that I don't necessarily know that well. And then actually my connection needs don't get met, even though my like day-to-day busyness needs get met.
That's it. It's like it's easy to be very busy, but not actually have much depth. And I feel like the depth that I have has just taken so much longer than I thought it was going to,
Yeah.
and so much more intentionality. Where it's like, let's voice text, or like even actually the weirdest thing has been is like having regular stuff on the calendar where you're like, I'm not even trying to regularly catch up with you. It's in the calendar, like, oh, I see you every week at playgroup. We're in the same Bible study, or like our run like a Saturday. I say I run, I'm like, whatever. There's two couples, and I don't really do that much, but there are like a bunch of families we get together every second Saturday, and everyone brings a dish, and we have a small Bible study. The kids are chaos, but just actually it's all of those little things where you're like, okay, there are people across all of those. And, and I voice text and I see you, and you see all of my life. And there's like, yeah, I'm not always trying to schedule to get a catch up, but it's people that I do my everyday life with. But yeah, those relationships, like, people that you go away with on holidays, but you think those relationships have taken years and years.
On a practical note, there's a thing, you might have seen it. It's gone around, like it's going around social media now. But there's an article that's come out by Tanya Hennessy, and it's called. She's very much not a Christian, but it's called The Catch-Up Trap, and it's about the concept of that, particularly as like middle-aged women or like whatever. All we do is go out, have a coffee. You download about your life, I download about my life, and then go away, and then catch up again in 3 months. We're not doing anything to create any new memories together or any fresh bonding things. And I'm like, that is so true. You obviously can't do that with 10 people, but those people that you actually are like, and that's the thing of like the family holiday with another family or that sort of thing. Unless we're creating new memories, then you end up just, and often it can become quite a very negative space where you get together and just kind of whinge about life, and not necessarily, but often. Or it's just that thing of like, oh, life is hard, it's heavy, I've got young kids, no one has enough money, it's all, eggs are so expensive. But I just thought, I was like, that's a very interesting concept to think of like, am I being intentional? Because I find that in marriage, I'm always trying to find, like Dan and I will often just book tickets for something because I'm like, cool, that's in 6 months' time. I can organise that. That's something cool that we've never done before, something together. Like we went hot air ballooning or whatever. And you go, we're the only ones that have done that. Like, remember that time we went hot air ballooning? And you think sometimes like the coffee catch up thing, which is a very big thing in Christian culture as well. We love catching up at the Dome and, talking about stuff. But I think, yeah, that's actually a really interesting thing to think about. And how can I do that with friends I want to build like a deeper connection with? Could I do that? Like a friend of mine, we went, I mean, again, this is not for everyone, but we went to Metro's in Frio and went dancing because we haven't been dancing in 15 years. And that's all we did. And we went and danced with each other and a bunch of like very young people. But it was fun. And you go, remember that time we did that thing?
Yeah.
such a bonding thing. And even chemically in your brain, that release of oxytocin and things actually does bond you to those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing to think of.
That intentionality. And of course, you can't do that with loads of people, so you do have to be a bit selective.
Yes.
But that's kind of how you deepen relationships. Like, you can't do it with everyone. I do wonder how much the impact of being on social media, being hyper connected in some ways to people that you would have dropped off with a long time ago. Like, I have people that I went to high school with. It's over 20 years ago now, and we're never going to see each other.
We're not friends. If we were going to catch up, we would have done it by now.
Yeah, we've had 20 years to do this.
Yeah, except you know that they went to a baby shower last week.
Yeah.
Which is weird. But I know stuff you're doing.
Yeah, it's unnatural. I know who maybe is separating because all of a sudden their photos are a lot better.
Yes, exactly.
And I think it's like, did you ever hear, maybe Rory talked about it years ago, but it was the Dunbar's number. Like, you can only really know about 100 and closest network can really only be about 5. Like, that's how we've designed, that's the village life. And you think, but it just doesn't work the same. Social media would say you can keep up with so many hundreds of people, but you can't.
Yeah. No, you really can't.
Brilliant. Well, I like something I was going to cover was like those barriers to like kind of deep connection. And I think we've kind of covered that like really nicely. I suppose it'd be interesting to think about what would be a thing that you're learning or you're working on, I suppose, to kind of sum up, you know, in relationship to kind of like build that deep connection, because I suppose we all have different challenges. Like, there's no like one size fits all where you're like, just share more or catch up or go for coffee, because, you know, we can do those things not well either. But yeah, what does it mean to kind of invest in our relationships?
Working towards being better at connection, I think I would love to be the friend that friend was to me. All right, can I be brave enough to, with kindness, call someone out and then follow them up on something, to be actually, because I think we often think about connection in terms of, oh, how can I connect with someone to share my struggles, rather than how can I connect with someone so they can share with me, because potentially I could support this person. We often think of it, you know, we're all selfish beings. And I think it would take a lot for me to be brave enough to gently call someone out on something and go, you sure? Like, is that what you actually think? Is that what you want to do? And then also,
I do remember you did that for me once, though, just saying. Yeah. I came to you with like some scheme and I was like, I think I want to do this now. And you were like, you know, that could be cool and I would read it. But also, like, would this bring you the same joy? Would this bring you, like, would you actually enjoy it in the same way that you do all these other things? And I was like, like, I needed like that kind of permission to be like, I don't actually have to do this, even if it's a fun idea.
It doesn't sound like me at all, but I'm glad I said that. I think I do remember that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Sorry, I completely derailed your line of thought because you had a second thing.
No, my other thing was just the catch-up thing. I was like, how can I actually do fun, not necessarily fun, but like do experiences, and even as a like it can be as a family with another family, that like go away, go camping, go do something that creates a memory and a bonding thing with the people I want to establish deeper relationships with.
Yeah. I like that. Britt, what about you?
I would like to be more intentional around just where I spend my time generally. And that's kind of been a theme for me for years now. I kind of say yes to everything and then I'm like, oh, I'm overloaded. So,
how did this happen?
Yeah, because I thought everything would be a great idea. So being more intentional with time, but also I think, with people, and what you're saying about thinking about in terms of bonding and experiences, like how can I bring that more into my life? Because I think I'm not so much in the coffee catch-up trap. I'm more in the like going for dinner trap. Like groups that I would go for dinner with. And then you're not seeing them that regularly. It's very hard to be properly in each other's lives. So that's something I'd like to think about and work out how I do it. And probably it's a bit of a work in progress. I need to actually like properly consider that.
and make choices and things like intentional to the stage of life you're in, because you're like, I would love to go away on a weekend or whatever, but you're like, it might be a bit ambitious currently.
Yeah. Like I could go away every weekend. Also, I feel like groups of women love a weekend away.
Love it. Yes.
I mean, I love it. It's very relaxing. However, my family does not love when I just traipse around and do my own thing for a while. It's like it's a balancing act.
Yeah. See, I would be kind of with you, Britt. Well, I mean, look, I like to say yes to everything. Everything sounds like lots of fun. And then I'm just like, oh no, I'm the one who has to live this. I said yes to all of these things, and now this is my schedule. But I have been really wrestling with recently. I'm like, okay, I have these friends. They're not going to go anywhere. I love them. They're not going to go anywhere if I don't turn up for like 2 weeks. It's fine. And the people at the park or whatever, fine. That's fine. But for me, being like, okay, I have to have days at home. I have to be really, weirdly enough, for deep connection. I'm like, if I'm out every single day with little children, then I'm actually just grumpy. And then that's not helpful for anybody. So ironically, me being intentional about having rest days and Sabbath, rest time, and all of those things, and trusting that people will still be there. No one's like, oh no, you've rested. We can't be friends. I know it's dumb when I speak it out.
They're not going to forget you.
You have to disconnect to reconnect later.
This is it. This is why I have got this app on my phone. It's called Freedom, and it's a paid app. And I know it's dumb, but I'm bad at putting my phone down because I love texting and I love all of the things. But just little blocks. I'm like, okay, in the morning for a couple of hours, and then in the afternoon when I pick my kids up from school. And it has been really good because I'm like, I can respond in a little bit. It's not even like I'm never taking my phone with me again. But just that pause has been really, I hate it and I love it, but it's been good for me.
What do you do? Just think your own thoughts? Gross.
Just be by myself in a room. Isn't that the Blaise Pascal quote? Most of men's problems is the inability to sit in a room quietly by yourself.
Yeah, I could probably use that app because I do get a bit like, if someone texts me, I feel compulsion. Firstly, if I see a notification, very compulsive to check it and then to reply as soon as. And even David said to me before, you don't actually need to respond to that right now. Just put your phone down.
Yeah, I'm exactly.
I gotta keep on this treadmill, and meanwhile I'm exhausted.
I'm keeping all these balls in the air. Don't distract me.
The thing is that you think no one, before there were smartphones, you didn't have to talk all the time. There's some stupid joke. Maybe it was, I can't even remember the comedian, but he was talking about his marriage length to his dad. He was like, well, look, I talk to my wife all the time because we text during the day and then we talk at nighttime. He's like, my dad only ever talked to my mum at nighttime. But it's that we're like, how?
But also, how many of the texts are did you put the bin out? Do we have milk? Did you remember this? Or, by the way, I need you to do this. It's not actually meaningful.
Did you know that the child did this? I need to talk to you about the child.
Yeah. When are you back? That's my favourite to send.
I heard that there was something happening at our house on the weekend. What's happening? What is the plan?
Oh, that's funny.